Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. I'm Lisa Friend, and I'm delighted to be your host this evening as we travel to Italy's Amalfi Coast and the zesty city of Naples. So please join me in welcoming our guest all the way from sunny Italy, Anne Long. Anne, I'm so happy you're here.
Hello, Lisa. I'm glad to be here with you.
So before we begin the video, where are you? What time is it? And what's the situation there in lovely Italy?
Well, I'm at home. I'm in a town that's about 5 miles up in the hills above Sorrento. It's 4:04 in the morning. So yeah, that's right. It's dark outside. So other than that, there's not much to be said.
Well, it is a tradition on Monday Night Travel for us to have a little food and drink. So you saw me grabbing my little shot glass from the fridge because we have the very important drink from the Amalfi Coast, limoncello. And you
Right.
told me it must come directly from the freezer. And this is called a digestivo. And I'd like you, Anne, please, to share me why Italians drink digestivo.
The Italians have many digestivo. The limoncello is just the most famous now amongst the foreigners, really. And digestivos are to help you digest a heavy meal. So once they've gone through their antipasti and their primo and secondo and contorni and dessert and everything else, fruit, they will have a digestive drink that is supposed to help them digest a heavy meal. But I think it's just another excuse to drink.
Do you make your own? I've heard that people make their own.
It's very easy to make your own. I used to make my own, but I don't anymore because I usually get a couple of bottles for presents at Christmas time or at birthdays and things. So I usually have more than enough for what I consume at home. But very simple, the recipe for making limoncello.
And that is?
And that, I don't know, I might have to sell this one. No, you just need the rind of the lemon, the zest of the lemon, sorry. And you put that into alcohol. You can use vodka if you want, but we use it's called Everclear in America. It's a grain alcohol, so it has no flavor. And the better the alcohol, the less it burns going down. You put the zest in the alcohol, you let it sit for a week. You're using probably about 5 to 7 lemons. And then you strain it and you add a simple syrup of just sugar and water to it. And then you just put it in bottles and when you're going to be using it, then you put it in the freezer, but it'll save outside of you don't have to put it in the freezer until you're ready to use it.
Well, thank you for the recipe. I might try that myself.
Very simple, but you have to come to Sorrento for the lemons.
Oh,
that's the only problem.
Well, deal. Okay. To your health?
To our health. Salute.
Salute. That's pretty darn good. Now, one of the other things that we're doing is we're having some munchies. What do you have there, Anne?
Well, I of course started with our insalata Caprese, with our wonderful local tomatoes and the mozzarella di bufala cheese with salt, pepper, and basil. And of course, my basil has to come from my plant.
Your basil's so much bigger than mine. I just have this little sad bouquet.
That's okay. That's what it's all about. You have much better things than Seattle as far as Starbucks coffee. I have basil.
Well, you taught me something about basil, because here's my caprese salad, because it's little, what do you call these, ciliegini?
Yes, little cherry tomatoes.
Little cherry tomatoes and cherry size mozzarella, because I couldn't get anything else. But you told me that I had to rip my basil. I couldn't chop it. Now, why is that?
No. because the ripping, that is what releases the oils. The chopping, some of the oils will get on the knife and everything, but you want to just rip the basil up and sprinkle it on your salad.
Oh, it smells fantastic.
Oh, it's wonderful. It really
Now,
releases the perfume.
I don't have any Southern Italian olive oil. I do have some olive oil from Tuscany. I apologize.
All right. We have to accept the ruin of civilization in other ways too.
I thought it was funny when we were talking about making this last week when we were just talking. I said, well, I'll bring my balsamic vinegar. And you were like, no, you won't.
Right.
So
I had to pick myself up off.
Go ahead.
I had to pick myself up off the floor when you said it.
I'm sorry. So now I have.
Wonderful, beautiful colors. There's the color of our flag in Italy.
Oh yeah, and this
red,
salad,
white, and green.
Insalata Caprese. What does that mean?
It's a Capri salad. You know, just a very light. The mozzarella is usually from down along the coastline past Salerno, and the tomatoes are from near Vesuvius, and the basil could be from any place, but they gave it to the island of Capri for the title. So whatever, we cover the whole area.
Oh, nice. Okay, shall we begin our video and then we can dig into our salads?
Okay.
All right, let's see about this, because we'll look for Mr. Rick Steves.
Wedged on a ledge, under the mountains and over the sea, spritzed by lemon and orange groves, Sorrento is an attractive resort town of 20,000 residents and, in the summer, as many tourists.
Serene Sorrento is well located both as a springboard for regional sightseeing and as a fine place to simply stay and stroll. While just an hour south of wild and crazy Naples, the Sorrentines have gone out of their way to create a completely safe and genteel place for tourists to come, relax, and enjoy spending their money.
While the town's hot and mobbed with tourists during the summer, we're here in mid-April. The weather's comfortable, and most of those enjoying the fun in the Sorrento sun are locals.
Sorrento goes back to ancient Greek times. In fact, the word Sorrento comes from the Greek word for siren. During his legendary Odyssey, Ulysses sailed by and he overcame the treacherous lure of the seductive sirens. In doing so, he opened up this region to colonization. To the ancient Greeks, places like Sorrento were the wild, wild west.
The town's original Greek street plan survives, running east-west for the most sunlight and north-south for the prevailing and cooling breeze. While the breeze is welcome in the summer, even in ancient times, documents report of locals complaining about the cold winter wind. Sorrento's back streets give a peek at both its long history and rich culture. This 13th century palace recalls a rough and tumble age. It had no balconies for security reasons. Tiny shrines decorate walls throughout southern Italy. The Catholic faithful pray to Mary in hopes that she'll advocate for them up in heaven. Italians venerate Mary, and Italian men also venerate their mothers. Even so, Italian men have built into their lives women-free zones. Here at the Sorrento Men's Club, men, and only men, play cards and gossip under an historic emblem of the city and a frescoed 16th century dome. While originally a place where the town's nobles met, today this is the club for working class guys. Strictly no women and no telephones either.
And this video was made several years ago, but it still seems a little bit tied to the past. Is it true? Are there still men's clubs in Sorrento that don't allow women?
Yes, there certainly are. And if you ask the women, they wouldn't want to go anyway. So that's perfectly okay that the men, it's mainly middle-aged and elderly men. The young ones aren't really going into the men's club anymore, but they get together and they have a cup of coffee, they play some cards, and they gossip just like any other woman would do when they're going out shopping every morning and stuff. They have to get the local gossip, and then when they go home for lunch, they have something to talk about over the dinner table.
Do the women have their zones or clubs too?
They don't have their own clubs. They have their own way. If they're not going out to talk with the local shopkeepers and their friends that are out shopping at the same time, because most people go out at exactly the same time every day, then they end up doing different things like this woman here. This is a local place right up where I live, 5 minutes from my home, where women still go down and wash clothes, mainly linens, clothes, sheets, and things in the local spring water. It's cold as hell in the winter period. In the summer, it's better, but they're washing their clothes and they're talking with other women because there's usually somebody else there that will keep them company while they're doing their work. And there she is scrubbing the things against the wall of the trough.
Wow. Okay, well, let's head downhill and see what else is going on in the video.
Okay.
From the old center, an ancient lane zigzags down to Marina Grande, Sorrento's historic harbor. Just before reaching the harbor, you pass through an ancient Greek gate, a reminder that Marina Grande was always a separate town with its own proud residents. It's said even their cats look different. Sorrentines believe that because this section of town was locked outside the fortified wall during pirate raids, Marina Grande dwellers descend from Saracen or Turkish pirate stock. Sorrentines still scare their children by saying, "Behave or the Turks will take you away."
So, Anne, you know that I'm a travel consultant in the office, and one of the questions I get is, I'm going to spend 3 or 4 days in Sorrento. Where's a good beach? And I think this is the beach, but I wanted your insider knowledge.
Yeah, this is the beach down at the Marina Grande, the fisherman's village. Just because of the way Sorrento is laid out, it's built on a cliff. So the beaches that are down below are either non-existent or very narrow, and they're not sandy. Most of them are small rocks. So we aren't known for our beaches. When you get closer to the Marina Piccola, which is where the boats go to Capri and over to Naples, there's jetties that are built out into the water. So these cement walkways have deck chairs and umbrellas that you can rent for the day. They have changing cabins and things, and then you can get down into the beach, into the water from there, because the Italians prefer seawater. But you really need to go along the Amalfi Coast before you can come upon a real beach that you can spread out on. Maiori, Minori, they have better beaches down there.
Oh, let me just see if I have some information on that. What is this picture of, Anne?
See, this is a picture looking down on the beach of Maiori, just past Amalfi. We have 2 towns, Minori, which means minor, and Maiori, which means major. And so this is the major one. They have a nice stretch of beach. They have deck chairs, umbrellas that you can rent. You can get into the water and you can really spend the whole day. And then great restaurants along the front there if you want a nice fish meal.
Are there hotels in Maiori for people who really wanted to sleep near the beach?
Yes, yes. Most of the hotels are right along the beachfront. There's not much back behind into the valley. So yeah, most of the hotels do have a sea view.
Okay, well, let's head back to the Marina Grande and Sorrento and finish that up.
Today, there's just not much very menacing about the Turks of Marina Grande. The port's economy is still based on its colorful fishing fleet, and more recently, its many seafood restaurants. The family-run Ristorante Delfino gets its seafood right off the fisherman's boat. Enticing dishes are served with enthusiasm to hungry locals right on the pier. Around here, lemons are everywhere. Every other shop is lemon yellow. Stores bottle their own citrus treats. And they're generous with samples. When it comes to fruit stands in Sorrento, pucker up. On the Amalfi Coast, there is always something to learn in this land where there is more to lemons than lemonade. In Sorrento, there's lemons everywhere. Tell me about your lemons.
Allora, this is a typical lemon of Sorrento, okay? We tell sfusato. Sfusato is the form. You see the smell?
Oh, that's nice.
With this, we make limoncello.
I can smell the limoncello.
Yes.
Okay, what's the big one?
This big one is...
And can you smell the limoncello?
I can smell the limoncello. I've got it right here. So, but the lemons do have a very nice smell here.
Chin chin.
Chin chin.
Cedro. This we heat with extra virgin olive oil and salt near the fish.
So with the dinner, with the fish?
Yes, yes.
Very nice. Thank you. Grazie.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Surprising visitors right in the town center is an inviting lemon grove. An abundant orchard provides locals and tourists alike with a fragrant and peaceful stroll. At the rustic shop, cap your visit with a taste of the region's favorite liqueur, limoncello.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves. I'm in Sorrento, one of the most romantic towns anywhere and one of the most romantic corners of Europe, the Amalfi Coast, the Bay of Naples. I'm with my local guide, Giovanna. Ciao.
Hi, welcome to Sorrento, to everybody.
Now, Giovanna, this is a very special time in Italy. It's the passeggiata. What is the passeggiata for you?
People, they just love to walk around, to meet each other, to stop for a gelato, and to enjoy the fresh air and the energy of the town.
And there's a beautiful energy tonight, and it's as far as you can see, it's solid people. Now there's quite a few tourists here, but there's also a lot of local people.
Lots of local.
Because this is the time to be out and about. This is the magic hour. People have made their money, they're not ready to go home and hit the sofa yet, and they gather together in the streets, and they got their kids, and they got their dogs, and they got their gelatos.
Some shopping.
Some shopping, and we're just enjoying, well, it's the famous La Dolce Vita in Sorrento. Buon passeggiata.
Grazie. Wishing to welcome everybody here.
Nice.
And so I have a question about this that I think might be of interest to other people. My grandmother used to call this her evening constitutional. Is this something that everybody would participate in, or would it only be on weekends, or would people come in from the hills, or only people that live downtown? Like, how big a deal is the passeggiata?
The passeggiata is a big deal in Italy in general. I mean, it's not just the south of Italy, it's all over Italy that you find towns that are set up that they have pedestrian areas shut down so that people can stroll, because so many of the Italians do live in small apartments, especially on weekends. Sunday, they'll have a large meal at lunchtime, so they want to get out and have a nice stroll in the afternoon. In the summer months, they're strolling 7 days a week because the kids are out of school and it's warm, it's hot. They don't have air conditioning necessarily at home, so they get out and have some fresh air, and they have to see and be seen. They get dressed up in their finery and strut up and down the street.
Wow, I would like to see that.
It's a parade. It's definitely a parade.
All right, let's keep going.
The Amalfi Coast is chaotic, scenic, in love with life Italy at its best. With its breathtaking scenery, dramatically perched port towns, and historic ruins, the Amalfi is Italy's coast with the most. Whether you ride the bus or a taxi, the trip south from Sorrento is one of the world's great road trips. You'll gain respect for the Italian engineers who first built the road, and even more respect for the bus drivers who drive it. Cantilevered hotels and villas cling to the vertical terrain, and beautiful sandy coves tease from far below. As you hyperventilate, notice how the Mediterranean really twinkles. Traffic is so heavy that private tour buses are only allowed to go southbound. Even so, because of the narrow roads and tight corners, expect some delays. and enjoy the show.
And that gives me just a little bit of an anxiety attack. You know, in the office, I work as a travel consultant, and people will often come to me with these plans of driving. We're gonna rent a car in Naples and drive the Amalfi Coast. And I think that that's not a great idea, but I would like your expert opinion because you've been up and down this road a million times. So what do you think of people driving themselves on the Amalfi Coast?
Well, you're going to either drive along the Amalfi Coast or you're going to look and enjoy the Amalfi Coast. You can't do them both. You'll be too wrapped up with the traffic and parked cars and motorbikes speeding around you to be able to see anything. So you really do need to either go with public transportation like the boats and get from point A to point B, or you need to hire a car or a minivan and have the driver be the one worrying about traffic and where to park and everything else. And you can just sit back and enjoy and get dropped off in town centers to sightsee while he's dealing with all the other problems that you have when you have a vehicle.
So that can be, you know, not for the budget conscious, but if you get, especially if you get 4 people, it can be somewhat reasonable for a lot of people.
Exactly.
But I wanted to say that if you're budget conscious, instead of taking the public bus, you're better off taking the public boat, because
Exactly.
you told me on the earlier show that if you were on the bus, you weren't going to be able to see anything.
Yeah, the buses have no limit. The limit is how many people they can jam on there. So you're going to have people down the aisle and everything. And if you're not in the right position, you're not going to see anything except somebody's belt buckle. So the boats are restricted by numbers. They have to count on and count off for safety issues. So you'll always have a place to sit down, and you will be able to see much more for using the boats.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Look at the engineering here.
This road is very, very old. It's about 750 years old.
700
Yes.
years.
And for make this road, it takes about 150 years from Sorrento down to Salerno.
Specializing in scenery, shopping, and sand, the resort town of Positano hangs on the most spectacular stretch of the coast. Only one street in Positano allows motorized traffic. The rest are steep pedestrian lanes. Because bus access is so limited and hotels don't take large groups, the town, unlike Sorrento, has been spared the impact of big bus tourism. The village is squished into a ravine with narrow pedestrian-only alleys that cascade down to the harbor. The skyline looks like it did a century ago. Strict building codes prevent modern structures. The town's shallow rooftop domes are filled with sand. These provide insulation, cool in the summer, warm in the winter. Positano's steep lanes are a way of life for the 4,000 hardy residents. It's a pleasant gathering of cafes, galleries, and boutiques. There's little to do here but eat, window shop, and enjoy the beach and views. And that's exactly the way its many visitors like it. The beach is a relaxed scene. Boats shuttle visitors in and out. Young Romeos polish their craft. And the cafe crowd watches it all unfold. Many of the best Amalfi Coast views are just south of Positano. You'll see several medieval watchtowers built to warn of Turkish or Saracen pirate attacks.
The towers, they are very old, from the Saracens' time.
The Saracen pirates?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 30 of these along the coast.
Yes.
Why so many?
Because they need the towers just to tell to the people that the Saracens was on the way in.
So it was a warning about the
Yes,
attacks.
just a warning. And they warn with the fire on the top of the tower. So every tower had a little bit fire
Also, like very fast, you could
Yes,
spread the word that the
yes.
Saracens are
And
coming.
all
the pirates
people
are coming.
they just go from the beach up.
Run away from the pirates.
Yes, run away. Yes.
The Amalfi Coast is named for this town. After Rome fell, Amalfi emerged as an independent republic. Innocuous as it looks today, in its 10th century heyday, Amalfi was a maritime power. With a trading fleet that controlled the region, it competed with Genoa and Venice. The Republic of Amalfi minted its own coins. It even established the rules of the sea, the basics of which survive today. But in 1343, this tiny powerhouse was devastated by a tsunami. This disaster, compounded by a deadly plague, left Amalfi a humble backwater. Today, the shipyards where its powerful galleys were built 1,000 years ago house tourist shops, and the former glory of Amalfi's pint-sized empire is remembered on this tiled map. But tourists seem oblivious to the town's illustrious past. They're here to enjoy the good life under the Amalfi sun. Today, the town lives off tourism and boasts a cathedral grander than a town of 7,000 would merit. The church's imposing stairway provides an ideal hangout for locals. Its fanciful facade is Neo-Byzantine, dating only from the 19th century. But this bronze door is 1,000 years old, given to Amalfi by a wealthy local merchant who had it made in Constantinople. The cathedral is richly decorated. Behind its fine 13th century wooden crucifix, a painting shows St. Andrew martyred on an X-shaped cross. And St. Andrew himself is buried here. Holy relics were sources of power in the Middle Ages. Like Venice needed the bones of St. Mark to get on the pilgrimage map, Amalfi got St. Andrew, one of the apostles who left his nets to join the original fishers of men. St. Andrew's remains were brought here from Constantinople in 1206 during the Crusades. That's an indication of the wealth and the importance of Amalfi back then. St. Andrew is near and dear to the people of Amalfi because he's credited with saving the town from certain pillage and plunder back in the 1500s during a pirate raid. Just when a horrible attack seemed inevitable, a freak storm hit and the pirate ship was destroyed. This plank is all that remains of that ship. This and other treasures of the cathedral are well displayed in the adjacent museum. The Angevin mitre, with a pavement of tiny pearls setting off its gold and gems, has been worn by bishops since the 14th century. The Cloister of Paradise is a peaceful as well as evocative place for a shady rest. Its graceful columns protect stone sarcophagi, as this was the cemetery of Amalfi's nobles. The bell tower, with its maiolica tiles, a regional specialty, stands high above the cathedral.
Centuries before Christ, Naples was a thriving Greek commercial center called Neapolis, or the New City. Over the ages, it became an important center ruled by a series of foreign overlords. In the 18th century, Naples finally became the capital of its own independent kingdom. Then, with the unification of Italy in 1861, Naples fell from being an important political capital to just another provincial town.
Neapolitans lament that after their city joined the newly united Italy, its riches were swallowed up by the new country. As the city's wealth was used to fund the industrial expansion of the north, Naples eventually lost its status and glamour.
And I wanted to ask you about that because we were talking about that earlier. So Rick said that they had a series of foreign countries that ruled over them. Then they finally got their own independence. And then very shortly after that, Italy became united. And then what happened to poor Naples?
Naples had a very important place in history back in the Grand Tour days of the 17 and 1800s, that it was only second after Paris as to destinations for people who were doing the Grand Tour in order to broaden their education. And they, if you wanted to come see Pompeii, the remains that were just starting to be dug up, the things that were being taken out by the Bourbon kings were on show. The palaces that were around, because since the Charles III sat on the throne in the Kingdom of Naples, a lot of people wanted to live nearby, the rich people. So we had beautiful places to show off. But then after the unification of Italy, the Naples in the south of Italy really took a dive because they took the money. It was the richest region of Italy after the unification. So they stole the money. They killed people from the south. There was a civil war down here in order to get them under control. And they took the money up north. So it was really fell into problems, poverty, and of course, mass immigration from here.
Wow, I had no idea that there was a civil war. That's very interesting.
Yeah, Victor Emmanuel, the king, came through here to unify Italy and took over without any kind of declaration of war and told them what they were going to be doing and not doing. So it really was a civil war.
Wow. Do you have anything that you want me to show from that time, like the Opera House?
If you'd like to, the 1737 is when the San Carlo Opera House was built to honor Charles III, the first Bourbon king to sit on the throne. And there are other opera houses that are older, but this is the first one that allowed the public to come in. And look at the theater. It's absolutely beautiful with the King's box there right in the center, beautiful frescoed ceiling. And in all the boxes around there, every box up there has a mirror inside directed towards the King's box, because nobody could applaud, nobody could laugh, nobody could do anything without the King doing it first. So they all had to keep an eye on him for what they were supposed to, how they were supposed to react.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really interesting. Let's talk more about Naples, because Rick talks about Naples as gritty, and I like to think of it as zesty. Right. So let's keep that in mind.
Okay.
Today, Italy's third largest city feels in many places like an urban jungle. Its lack of open spaces or parks makes it Europe's most densely populated city. Watching the police try to enforce traffic sanity is almost comical in this gritty city. The vast Piazza Garibaldi facing the train station provides an off-putting welcome to those arriving by train. But get beyond this, and Naples surprises the observant traveler with its good humor and decency. Its people have an impressive knack for living, eating, and raising children in the streets. Southern Italy's leading city, Naples offers a fascinating collection of museums, churches, and eclectic architecture. This tangled mess, as intense an urban scene as anything you'll find in Western Europe, still somehow manages to breathe, laugh, and sing with a captivating Italian accent. Naples Fish Market wiggles and squirts from under one of the city's surviving medieval gates. Each stall is eye-catching. Is the seafood fresh? Most of it's still alive. Wandering through this scene, enjoy the playful competition of the singing merchants. In so many ways, you'll find Southern Italy is a distinct culture from the north. People here are more fun-loving and easygoing.
And I have to stop there for a minute. What is that man doing with that fish?
Right, he's explaining to Rick exactly how they catch it, how you're supposed to fix it and cook it. They would not just sell you anything. They have to explain the recipe, what time of day, how fresh it is, when it came in. It's all talking. They just love to talk. They love to explain in order to show how much they know about their business.
I like that in a fishmonger.
Exactly. They need to sell it fast and fresh because tomorrow nobody wants it anymore.
Good point.
Naples has long suffered from a bad reputation. Unemployment is chronically high, and past local government set an example that the mafia would be proud of. But lately, with mayors committed to safety and law and order, the city has more police and feels much safer.
Still, just to be cautious, assume any jostle or commotion is actually a smokescreen created by a thief team up to no good. Con artists are more clever than you. And also, assume able-bodied beggars are actually pickpockets. Keep your money belt hidden.
Neapolitan traffic is thrilling. Red lights are considered discretionary. Pedestrians need to be wary, particularly of the motor scooters. Be careful, but be assertive. While many timid tourists get stalled on the curb, I get across quicker by jaywalking in the shadow of confident locals. Rather than seeing Naples as a long list of sights, see its great archaeological museum, which we'll visit later, and then capture the spirit of the city by walking through its historic core. Anacapri, literally split Naples, is a perfectly straight street that dates from ancient Greek times. It leads through the colorful heart of the old city. Echoes of ancient Neapolis survive. The original Greek street plan is remarkably intact, and back then, like today, small businesses by day became private homes after hours, and life tumbled out of the homes and into the lanes. Today, this scene is just one more page in the 2,000-year-old story of Naples.
And before we go on, you've lived in Southern Italy for over 40 years. What kind of changes have you seen in Naples over the years?
Well, it was always it's always been a dirty and noisy city, as most major cities are around the world, I think, but port cities especially. But I've just noticed that in 1994, Naples was held the G7 conference. And knowing that they were going to have the world's eye on them for that week that they were holding meetings, they really got going with fixing it up, cleaning it up, opening up churches and small museums that had been closed for years. And it really starting to see the fruits of the tourism that started up after that we have some, like the archaeological museum is so much better set up, lighting, the explanations in English on the items. It was just dusty and awful before.
That sounds awful. I'm glad it's better now.
Yeah, it's lucky we're here to see the bad, because you can certainly appreciate the good, but I don't want to show the bad.
All right, well, let's look at some good then.
Yeah.
Even though for many Italians, soccer is like a religion, churches remain an important part of the community. Stepping into the lavishly Baroque Gesù Nuovo church, you'll learn how, along with sports heroes, Neapolitans have their religious heroes too. This much-adored statue celebrates Giuseppe Moscati, a Christian doctor famous for helping the poor. A steady stream of the neighborhood faithful remember him and hope he remembers them as a stop here is part of their daily worship routine. Moscati was so loved by the local community that when he died in 1927, there was a movement to make him a saint. After it was shown that he had cured 2 people of deadly diseases, he was fast-tracked to sainthood in 1987. The church where the saint preached has made a small museum covered with ex voti. These are given as thanks for prayers, in this case to Saint Moscati, that were answered. Each has a symbol of the ailment cured: heart disease, lung problems, a sick child, whatever. A display shows the great doctor's apartment, his possessions and photos. A bomb casing hangs in the corner. In 1943, it fell through the dome of Father Moscati's church, but destroyed almost nothing. Some say yet another miracle.
And we had a discussion earlier, and I wanted to show this one picture because we were talking about Naples and the people in Naples and their religious ideas and their superstitions. And so I put this picture up, and I would like you to just elaborate if you don't mind.
This is a perfect example of Southern Italians' philosophy, is that they cover all their bases. They will pray to Jesus, they will have the horseshoe, they will rub garlic around them, whatever they need in order to stay safe, to stay healthy. The sacred and the profane are mixed constantly, and they see absolutely no problem with that idea. Nobody frowns upon it. You don't have women looking down their nose at you because you have a horseshoe or you're believing this stuff. They believe it too.
Oh, cover your bases. That's a good point.
That's right.
All right, let's go back to the video.
Buongiorno. I'm just on the back streets of Naples here, and I have no list of sites. It's just check out the scene. And you never know. You really never know what you're going to encounter. That's one more reason I'm just in love with Napoli. The beautiful chaos, the bella chaos of Naples. There you go.
I just love that clip. I'm sure you do too. And we mentioned that this video, the video that we're watching is a TV show. The episode is several years old, but here's Rick in 2017, and it hasn't changed much. There's still the buckets that go from the street up to the apartments. There's still laundry hanging in the streets and street side altars. Does this still feel the way Neapolitans live today, Anne, to you?
Exactly. The young kids today are being raised with the same idea that their parents and grandparents did. They have fast web internet and all the other things as well, but they are growing up with the same traditions of the procession that runs right underneath your house. That lady was lowering her bucket to give an offering. She was giving money to them in order to sustain them, that the orchestra that is volunteering and things, that it's just part of their culture, that they like to have all this confusion. The bella chaos that Rick talks about is part of their blood.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for explaining, because I thought the bucket was going up, but it was coming down to help support
drop some money.
Nice.
For lovers of antiquity, this museum by itself makes Naples a worthwhile stop. The city's one essential museum visit offers the best possible peek into the art of Pompeii. The collection ranges from grand statuary and exquisite mosaics to the most intimate details of everyday Roman life. It's easy to forget that for many centuries, the people of Pompeii painted Mount Vesuvius like this, before it blew its top. These bronze statues, like so much of the art from Pompeii, are 1st century BC copies of 4th century BC Greek originals. They decorated the holiday home of Julius Caesar's father-in-law. Resting Hermes, with his tired little heel wings, is taking a break. But it's clear he'll be flying off again soon. The drunken faun, singing and snapping his fingers to the beat, is clearly living for today. True to the Epicurean philosophy Caesar's father-in-law subscribed to. Pompeii's many finely crafted mosaics give a sense of the sophistication and wealth of the city and its people. Culture thrived at Pompeii. This mosaic takes us backstage at the theater just before curtain time. Actors are being dressed, instruments tuned, and the masks that still symbolize comedy and tragedy today are ready to go. Another finely detailed and realistic mosaic shows street musicians boisterously entertaining those not quite up to a night at the theater. This scene from the Grand Battle of Alexander, with over 1 million pieces, decorated a floor in Pompeii's House of the Faun. In this epic battle, Alexander and his Greeks meet and defeat Darius and the Persians. The outcome is clear by the fear in the eyes of the Persians and the focus and determination of Alexander the Great. Notice the dynamism, shading, perspective, everything the Renaissance artists would work so hard to relearn 1,500 years later.
For a great day trip from Naples, Positano, or Sorrento, catch the early morning jet boat to the Isle of Capri. The Isle of Capri was first made famous as the vacation hideaway of Roman emperors. In the 19th century, it was the haunt of romantic age aristocrats on their grand tour of Europe.
While the island is small, just 4 miles by 2 miles, there's plenty to see and do. To get the most out of our quick visit, I'm meeting my friend and fellow tour guide, Roberta Mozzarella. Our first stop is the reason most come to Capri, to enter the fabled Blue Grotto. The Blue Grotto experience is more than just visiting a cave. Getting there, getting in, and getting back is a scenic hoot. You enjoy a fast cruise partway around the gorgeous island, seeing bird life and local fishermen at work, all under dramatic limestone cliffs.
So most of the Isle of Capri is just like this. Limestone cliff straight down into the beautiful blue water. Look at this cliff. From the water all the way up to the top, Roman emperors loved this because it was easy to defend.
Just as a devotee of Rick, I just have to channel him for a moment, because I think what he would do with the last part of that clip is that he would remind you that he only has 1 camera and 2 crew people. So when there's a shot of him reacting to what Roberta says, that happened later. That was not a live shot that way, only when the 2 of them are in the shot. So he has to pretend to be listening to her at the right moment. So I just thought he would tell you that if he were here, I think. Yeah. And then Anne, I want to go a little bit further and then stop again, because I want to talk to you about the Blue Grotto procedure.
Arriving at the mouth of the grotto, you find a busy distribution center. As the tourist-laden boats arrive, awaiting dinghies converge and visitors clamber gingerly into their little boats.
Okay, first of all, Anne, I know that you've been taking people around the Amalfi Coast for many years. In your knowledge, how many people actually end up in the water? Because this looks very precarious to me.
No, they're pretty good. They are pretty good. If the sea is too rough to begin with, that it usually closes the entrance to the grotto itself, so that they wouldn't even be out there maneuvering in rough waters. And they're the men who are doing the rowboats. They are aware of what people are like, and if they have a problem with balance things. So not that many people finish in the water, because it's much harder to dig them out afterwards and drag them back in. They got to drag them over to a ladder and get them up that way. So they certainly are trying to be careful to get people in and out.
All right, let's watch.
The entry hole is small. If the water's too rough, it becomes too dangerous. Dinghies can't get in, and visitors are turned back. We're lucky today. There's a little chop, but dinghies are squeezing in. The rayfish rowers jostle their way to the tiny hole. Tourists scrunch down safely below the gunnels, and the guides pull fast and hard on the cable at the low point of the swells to squeeze you into the grotto. Inside the 60-yard-long cave, the sun reflects off the limestone bottom, giving the grotto its famous brilliant blue. Your man rows you around, sings a little O Solo Mio, and lets you enjoy the iridescent magic of the moment. Capri, the largest of the island's 2 towns, sits in a saddle above the port. Piazza Umberto is the main square of this cute and touristy shopping town. The main drag is nicknamed Rodeo Drive for its exclusive boutiques. While prices are steep, the window shopping's free. These days, especially in the summer, Capri can be a world-class tourist trap, packed with gawky visitors searching for the rich and famous and finding only their prices. But other times of year, we're here in April, it provides a relaxing and scenic break. At the edge of town, elegant villas and a public garden are strategically placed to enjoy fine views. On glitzy Capri, everything's done with panache. Taxis are white convertibles. Though expensive, they make getting around an unforgettable part of your visit. The island's second town, Anacapri, has fewer tourists, a little more character, and a passion for colorful Maiolica tiles.
These are Maiolica tiles. We can see them everywhere, in Napoli, on the Amalfi Coast, here in Capri, on the domes of the churches, on the floors, on decorating people's homes.
And squares like this.
And the squares are like this one. Just glazed tiles. What's make them special? The colors. We love colors here.
The town's celebrated San Michele Church has a remarkable Maiolica floor showing paradise on earth in a classic 18th century Neapolitan style. Ironically, the church's floor is so gorgeous that pews for worshippers are replaced by a boardwalk for tourists. The entire floor is ornately tiled, featuring a sword-wielding angel driving Adam and Eve from paradise. The devil is wrapped around the trunk of a tree laden with trouble-causing apples. The animals, with curiously human expressions, seem blissfully ignorant of this momentous event. For expansive island views, ride the chairlift to the top of Monte Solero, Capri's 1,900-foot summit. You'll float over lush orchards and well-tended gardens.
So I want to verify with you, Ann, is this chairlift still open? Can one still do this? Because this looks like so much fun.
It is. It's still open, and I always recommend it to my people that are on tour with me as a highlight of the trip to Capri, that it just gets you away from the crowds, and it's a 360-degree view of the island and the water around it. And it's only 12 minutes to get up to the top, to a panoramic terrace, to have a look around, take pictures.
Nice. And would you recommend that they hike down? Because Rick says there's a great hike back down, but I don't always agree with him in his hiking recommendation.
I don't normally, again, they're not charging any less to do it one way. So you've paid for the trip down, and I would go up, have your views, and then come back down. There's other hikes. There's so many things to go see in different views that you can go look, like Tiberius's Villa, Jovis, and other pathways. So to go for the panoramic view up at the top and then go hiking someplace else is better.
Thank you.
At the summit, you'll enjoy the commanding panorama of both the Italian mainland in the distance and the Isle of Capri. Cliffs are busy with birds, enjoying a little R&R break during their migration, tending scenic nests, and soaring on a steady sea breeze. The Fariglioni Rocks are an icon of the island, with tour boats squeezing through every few minutes. And from here, the hike down is a delight.
It's clear to me why Roman emperors chose this island as their holiday escape, and why today so many travelers include the Amalfi Coast in their Italian travel plans. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rick Steves. Until next time, keep on traveling. Ciao.
So Ann, I wanted to thank you for watching the episode of Clips with me on behalf of myself and our viewers. Before we get to the questions, which I think are a lot of fun, I am obliged and honored to give a word from our sponsor. And that word from our sponsor this evening is our Best of South Italy tour. We have over a half a dozen itineraries in Italy, but Ann and I have discussed, and her favorite one to lead is the Best of South Italy. It has some off the beaten path destinations, such as the Gargano Peninsula, but also spends 6 nights on the Amalfi Coast in Meori, Sorrento, and Naples. So that is the word from our sponsor. Are you ready for some questions, Anne?
I think I am.
You're doing very well. It must be very late at night there.
Well, it's early morning. It's time to go feed the chickens now.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you an easy but personal question first. What is your favorite restaurant in Sorrento?
My favorite restaurant in Sorrento is one that's called the Hotel Sorrento. It's down near the public gardens of Sorrento, and you can sit inside or outside. It's on one of the little back streets, and it just has a nice variety of food, lights, great choice. He's got like 5 chefs in the little tiny place. It looks like a little tiny place, but he really turns out some good food. So I like the restaurant Sorrento.
Thank you. Stephen would like to know, what is the best time to visit southern Italy to escape the heat?
Well, if only global warming wasn't in the midst of this, I could answer. I started doing the tours in April, and April and beginning of May were just great, perfect for touring around. Weather was good, but I just finished one that started at the end of May. Should have been good weather and everything, but it just had a blast of heat into the 90s. So it's really hard to judge anymore.
Well, you have a problem with seasonality, right? You could say, visit the Amalfi Coast in January, there won't be any crowds, but nothing will be open either, right?
Well, in Sorrento itself, Sorrento, we've got tourism up through Christmas, up until the 6th of January, because we even have Italians that come down to have Christmas and look at the nativity scenes that we have set up in different churches, etc. And we have Christmas concerts going on in the churches. But as of the 6th of January, then the sidewalks start rolling up and there's not much going on. Even restaurants and things close down. So you're kind of hard pressed for finding places that are open in that period of time. But it is cooler and less busy.
Alice wants to know, what is the best way to navigate between the towns of the Amalfi Coast transportation-wise?
As of this year, really, I do highly recommend the boats. They have a public boat company that operates from Amalfi down towards Salerno and Amalfi up towards Positano, and it stops at a lot of the towns along the way as well. So it really is a good service.
Okay. Are there any considerations single women should take while traveling in Italy?
Don't get married and stay 42 years.
That's a danger, right? All the American women I know married Italians. They're like that.
Yeah, they're very good with the chase around here. No, single women are perfectly safe around here. I wouldn't worry about it. Don't feel intimidated or anything. Back when I used to come over there, you'd have the Italians hanging around street corners and whistling and catcalling and things. They've settled down a little bit. I guess they've gotten older like all of us.
Dean wants to know, after so long in Italy, does Anne feel like she's treated like any other local in Sorrento, or is she ever mistaken for a tourist?
I'm always mistaken for a tourist, I'm afraid. I do so much of my touring outside of the town, so I'm not known by everybody around here. But I'm a foreigner here and I'm a foreigner in America, so I'm not really bothered one way or another. When I go home, everything moves very quickly in America, so I find myself kind of standing against walls and trying to figure out how you're supposed to pay with credit cards and order in Starbucks and things like that. But the same over here. I'm too tall, I'm too pale to be an Italian. I have an accent when I speak Italian, so I'm a foreigner to most of them as well. But that's all right. They just don't realize that I can understand every word they're making, every comment they're making behind my back.
Oh, well, that leads me to another question. Let me go back to it. How did you learn Italian, and how long did it take you to feel fluent?
I'll say 42 years to be fluent. It's an ongoing process. When I first came, I didn't have money for lessons. And so I just did the sink or swim method. And within 6 months, I could understand what was being said. I knew what the people were talking about, maybe what they were trying to ask me. But 2 years before I could put a sentence together to respond back in any that made any sense and had a tense besides just present. I talked in the present tense for a year.
That's where I'm at. I'm like, yes, I completely understand. Teresa wants to know, how does Italy's political system compare to the US's?
Well, we're all upset with our politicians, I'm afraid. You know, we have a republic. We voted the king. The Italians voted the king out in 1946 because they thought he had encouraged and sustained Mussolini. So we've been a republic. And in America, we only have the two parties, which might be too few. And over here, we have lots of parties, which might be too many. So the perfect system doesn't exist in any country. And we're all rather upset with our politicians that we don't feel that they're handling the situation as it should be handled.
Okay. And then a more logistical question. What do you recommend as the better day trip, Pompeii or Herculaneum?
I think you should always start with Pompeii. If possible, I mean, you can do both of them in a day if you've got the stamina, but it's good to get the general idea of Pompeii. It's more of a whole city. You had middle class, you had wealthy people, you had slaves, you had the forum, traders, etc. When you get to Herculaneum, it was a rich man's resort. It was mainly well-to-do people with their slaves. And so it's much better preserved, but you need the backstory before you can understand what's going on there.
Okay, and Evan would like to know any recommendations of things to do and see in Ravello.
I used to always, when I would take people around, I used to always take them to the Villa Cimbrone. It's a beautiful walk. To get to the Villa Cimbrone, you have to go up about 100 steps. But then when you get to the villa, you can pay an entrance fee, and it's just a spectacular garden there with a beautiful, they have a terrace of the infinity that looks out on the coastline that's gorgeous. And you can definitely spend 45 minutes in there looking at the statue area, looking at the gardens, the views, the different buildings that they allow. That you can't get into the main villa because it's now a 4-star hotel. But you can definitely travel around the garden. It's very nice.
We looked at something earlier about Ravello. Do you mind if I share that?
Certainly, for the concerts as well.
Let's see about that. Here it is. I think this is interesting. Will you tell us about this, please?
Yes, this is in the other villa that's up in Ravello. It's called the Villa Ruffolo, and it's right there in the main square of Ravello. And the Villa Ruffolo, it was where Richard Wagner, the German composer, found inspiration. When he came into these gardens and looked out on this view, he found inspiration to write about the hanging gardens of Klingsor for his opera, The Parsifal. And since then, Ravello has been called the city of music. And so year round, but mainly in the summer is when it's most prevalent, they build this stage suspended out over empty space in the gardens of the Villa Ruffolo. And they have different orchestras, different musicians come several times a week that perform mainly classical music. It's not all Wagner music, it's different music. But it's such a beautiful setting. And one of their most important ones is always around the 15th of August, which is a national holiday, where whatever they have planned for that day, it starts at like 3 a.m. in the morning, so that the final notes of the concert are when the sun is rising behind the orchestra, which is facing east there.
Wow.
And you can find all the information about these concerts on the internet. If you put in Ravello concerts, music concerts, it'll come up what their program is.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
it's a beautiful. Yeah, beautiful setting. The people are sitting in the garden and also in bleachers. So it's restricted seating and there's not that much, but it's just such a magical place.
Do you know how hard it would be to get tickets for something like this?
Well, the 15th of August is always sold out quite early because people are so familiar with it. But the other ones, they have all different kinds. And I'm sure that if you came in a couple of weeks early to book it ahead of time, you shouldn't have any problem.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, Debbie, I love this question, Ann, because at my heart, I'm a rabble rouser. How do Southern and Northern Italians view each other?
Yeah, well, as I was saying on the last one, that they've never liked each other. They've always been at odds about who works the hardest, who is paying into the system. The Southerners are all sucking the money out of the system and they don't work. The Northerners are miserable and they all they think about is money and they don't know how to enjoy life. So they don't really like each other for centuries. And so the Northerners call the Southerners Africans and the Southerners call the Northerners Germans. So the Italians have just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Is it true that the Northerners think that Rome is in the south and the Southerners think that Rome is in the north?
Yeah, nobody wants to claim Rome. It's kind of a no man's land. So they just push it off to the other one and nobody wants to claim them.
Okay, let's see. We have time for just a few more questions. Sean asks, how many nights should the average first-time visitor to Italy plan to spend in Sorrento?
Well, Sorrento is a very good base in order to head out. It's connected with public transportation, so you can get to many different locations. So it really, you have to kind of decide how much you want to see. I would definitely say at least 3 to 4 full days, because our main things from Sorrento are Capri, Pompeii, and Amalfi Coast. The 4th day can be for just relaxation or just wandering around the town itself, or you can pick one of the many other places that we have in the area, like Herculaneum, the Royal Palace of Caserta. There's lots of places to go.
That actually leads me to another question that I think is worth mentioning is, how does the Amalfi Coast compare to the Cinque Terre? If you're going to pick a seaside spot in your Italian vacation, what are the considerations that you would want to keep in mind?
I think the Amalfi Coast is just easier to navigate than the Cinque Terre. The Cinque Terre is kind of a compacted Amalfi Coast. The trains are crowded. The trains are really about the only way you can get from one town to the next. The boats do work, but they take longer time. And for hiking, I mean, the Cinque Terre have more paths for hiking than we do on the Amalfi Coast, but there just seems to be more services, more things available on the Amalfi Coast rather than just the small villages and mainly the beaches and the seaside that you're looking at on pathways in the Cinque Terre.
Yeah, I would add the Amalfi Coast has a lot more things to see and do, right? In the Cinque Terre, right. You can hike, you can swim, you can eat pesto,
That's right.
That's
and
enough.
fish enough. That's right.
But in the Amalfi Coast, you can go to Naples and Pompeii and Capri, and there's a lot more to do. And I think they're better set up for larger crowds as well, which is, exactly what you just said about the trains are crowded in the Cinque Terre, the boats can be crowded, but it's better in the Amalfi Coast.
The Amalfi Coast is just a little bit easier, and there's so much to see, the whole length of the coastline. The Cinque Terre is not that long. The whole Amalfi Coast is about 50 kilometers, so it's a good chunk.
Oh yeah. Okay. Couple last questions. So Glenda wants to know: is it wise or necessary to book ferry tickets in advance for the Amalfi Coast?
No, there's none whatsoever. Just recently, I noticed that I went down to get on the ferry with some of my people on the Amalfi Coast. And when they see that there's extra people, they put an extra boat on. It's not just that. I've never had anybody ever say that they were abandoned, that they couldn't get the last boat, or they weren't able to get a departure. They work around the numbers, and that's why the boats just seem to be a little bit better means of transportation, because they have to know the numbers ahead of time as
Okay,
they sell the tickets.
Stephen would like to know, how fit do you have to be to get around the Amalfi Coast? Should travelers to the region train for the walking in advance?
Positano is more challenging. It's more vertical, so there's more climbing up and down. But Amalfi and Ravello and things, it's not that bad for walking. If you have any ideas of hiking, like on the Pathway of the Gods, you better be in pretty good shape, because that can be quite tricky, quite uneven. You have to have the right shoes. You have to have hat, water. People are going and doing the hikes up there not prepared at all, and they're helicoptering them out with heat exhaustion and falling and things. So you should be careful if you're going to do any of those kind of hikes.
Okay, I think we have answered all of the questions that Gabe sent us. I would like to just say, you know, what has Italy changed about you? What has being in Italy for 42 years done to you as a person, Anne?
Well, you know, I try to go back to America like every 2 years. I always went back like every 2 years. I've been going back more often now, but it's just, I'm much more laid back. When I see my friends back in America and things, I see that their life is so much more frenetic and active and things, that there's so many things to do. Whereas I just sit back, and I've adopted the Southern Italian way of just taking it easy. When you need to do something, you go and do it. But this worrying too much about the future, worrying about what's going to happen 2 weeks down the line, I don't do that anymore.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank you for myself, because I'm so happy that you agreed to stay up throughout the night and into the early morning to be here with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, Anne, I'm going to say thank you, and I'm going to say good night so you can go get a coffee or fall unconscious into bed.
I haven't finished all of my caprese salad, so I might have to save that with scrambled eggs in the morning.
Oh, that's a good idea. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Good luck to everybody and happy travels.
And come to Sorrento.
Yes, return to Sorrento. That's right. I wish I could sing.
Me too. So I would like to thank you all for joining us. I would like to remind you that next week we have our wonderful colleague Rich Earl is going to be here with Gabe, and they're going to be talking about Barcelona and Catalonia. So register at ricksteves.com/MNT, and we will see you another time. Thank you very much.